Hello everyone, welcome to the Bob Wahl Show. On the Bob Wahl Show we talk business, St. Louis, and real estate. This is the final episode of a 4-episode series with Tom and Cherie from St. Louis Radon. And today we're going to talk about the benefits of getting a radon system in a new construction home. So Tom and Cherie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for having us again.
I guess to start off, can you test, one of the first things I like to know, can you test for radon before starting construction on a new construction home, or do you have to wait until after?
That question comes up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So you can't really test the soil prior to the construction of the home to determine whether or not there's going to be a radon problem.
Mm-hmm.
Radon's not necessarily like a giant blanket of uranium surrounding the whole subdivision. It's going to be pieces of uranium and at different depths of the soil. And so each one of those pieces of uranium would have to also have a source strength that's strong enough to off gas and then have air passageways leading from that source all the way up to the home. And then the home would have to have sufficient vacuum to pull the gases up into the home. So by the time you sampled soil here, there, and everywhere, you really wouldn't have a good determination.
I see. So how does the process work? Someone's building a home. How do you go about testing for radon throughout that process to make sure that you're protected?
Typically, we test a new construction home about 2 to 3 weeks before closing.
Mm-hmm.
We work with the builder to gain access. We generally place a test on a Friday and pick it up on a Monday. That way, there aren't construction workers, contractors in there opening and closing doors and windows the whole time we're testing.
Okay.
We get a more accurate result.
And we'll use the continuous monitors, so they've got a real-time reading for that weekend.
Okay, so they test for radon before they actually close on the home?
Yes, now, that brings up a good point. It's
Yeah.
up to the buyer typically to do the radon test. And
Okay.
most often to pay for the radon test before closing.
Okay. So what happens if radon is found in a new construction home before someone closes on that home?
So we'll get the phone call that there was a radon concentration greater than 4. And between the buyer of the home and the builder, they'll normally have some pre-arrangement. Some builders
Okay.
will allow for the radon testing and then pay a portion of the cost for the radon mitigation work.
Mm-hmm.
Some builders will have it written in the contract that you can test for radon, but we're not going to take responsibility for it. So it happens both ways. And there's even some builders out there that will pay just a portion of the cost for the radon mitigation work. But by and large, most of them will, have some agreement up front, and whether they're giving them a credit or they're allowing the work to be done, most of the work will occur immediately after the closing of the home.
Okay. And so if a builder wants to, when the home's being built, that seems like potentially a good time to plan for a radon mitigation system, depending on the scenario. How does that work? Have you worked with construction companies to when a consumer wants to proactively install a mitigation system in the building process?
So we have from time to time, more often that happens with larger projects, so commercial settings where you've got, say an apartment complex come up. We might put a radon system in for the apartment communities because they'll have 3 floors of people, and you'll put one in every unit and in between every set of footings. When it comes to the single family residential building right now in Missouri anyway, by and large most of the builders are not putting in a radon system. It may catch on at some point in the future, but at current they're not. And it might be a cost concern. I think, in today's market, every line item is looked at and scrutinized. And if there was maybe some more pushback from consumers, they may. When it comes to putting in a radon system for new construction, the architect certainly could plot out the most appropriate location for the pipe to be routed. You'd look for a straight line as much as you could in the building process. And you'd look for something more internal to the home, and you'd probably elect to set it up for the possibility of needing a radon fan, but leaving the system passive. And by that, you'd take the PVC piping and you'd have it routed from underneath of the floor all the way up and through the roof line. And you'd have the electricians come in and set up an outlet nearby where the fan may be up in the attic. And you'd have the roofers flash it off at the top. At which point, the passive system, just by natural convection of heat, would take some of the soil gases from underneath of the home and reduce the radon levels. Would it be enough to solve a radon problem? It depends on how much radon was there. There would certainly be some reduction in that, but if it turned out that the radon measurements were still high, the next step would just be putting the radon fan in place. So I think it's a good idea, and it just doesn't happen here in Missouri.
Okay. Well, good to know. And we covered it before as far as how much the systems cost on the previous episode, but for whoever didn't catch that episode, and feel free to go back and watch it, how much do these radon systems
I
tend to
would tell you now, yeah. So most of the radon systems are under $1,000, and we probably have a typical system going in somewhere between $750 and $800. And we just, the new construction process, if you're to think about what happens in there, they're potentially putting this pipe in before the concrete is put in, and then maybe the concrete moves the pipe off plumb a little bit, and so then you've got the reworking of the system, and multi-stepping it, I think, probably adds to the expense, when you're trying to do this prior. But
True. Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, real good information. Again, Tom and Cherie with STL Radon. How can people find you online, social media again?
We are on stlradon.com on the web and social media on Facebook at St. Louis Radon Test and Mitigation. Our phone number is 636-200-2875.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining me today and on the other three series of the episodes that we've done. It's been a journey.
We've enjoyed it. Yeah, thanks for letting us educate consumers.
No, awesome information. I look forward to posting it. Look forward to having it on my website as well. So, well, thank you guys for joining us. That concludes this week's episode of the Bob Wahl Show. I will see you guys next week, and goodbye for now.
Goodbye.